Hi, welcome to part three. What do we do now that we're under contract on the house? So, this is some of the most stressful parts, and also this is the part of the deal where we get through everything. We know exactly what's going on with the house, and we get you to the settlement table, and you have your brand new house and you're ready to move in. So, once we're under contract, assuming that we elected inspections, we're going to get those done within the first 10 days of going under contract with the seller. So, in general, we have inspectors that we like to recommend. If you have somebody that you would like to work with, that's entirely up to you. Otherwise, we have all of the vendors that you need to get the transaction to the settlement table. So, in a home inspection, the inspector is going to go through the entire property, take things apart, get into the guts of systems and processes, and really see what's going on with the house. So, they're going to look at the age of the roof. They're going to look at the electrical line coming into the house. We're going to go down in the basement. They're going to take the electric panel off and make sure all the circuitry is up to code. If it's grandfathered in, that's okay, but we want to make sure that things are done correctly so that your electric is up to date and safe. And if it's not, this is something that we would ask the seller to potentially give you credit for or repair. And we'll get to that in a second on how we negotiate those things. The inspector is going to look at your HVAC system, whether it's a boiler, and to make sure that the boiler is working properly and heating the water temperature correctly, or if you have a full HVAC system, to make sure that the system is clean, has been serviced, is working properly, how old these systems are, which is very important. In general, an HVAC system in a house in our area lasts between 15 and 20 years. So if you're buying a house that has a system that's 20 years old, you need to budget accordingly that that system could go on you any day. Now, if the systems are working properly at the time of inspection, there's really not much to negotiate there. But if they're not working properly and we can see what needs to be fixed or that they need to be replaced, that is something that we can negotiate. So ultimately, we go through the entire home. We make sure all the plumbing systems are working well, HVAC, there's no leaks, there's no miscellaneous repairs that have not been taken care of. And we note all those things, and the inspector will put a home inspection report together for you. So there's a common misconception of home inspections that they are pass fail, and they're not like that in Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, it's really the purpose to educate you on the house you're buying, the ins and outs of it, and what you can expect to deal with as a homeowner over time. And once again, the more updated and taken care of a house is, the easier it is for you to move into it and maintain it yourself. And if it's not maintained, that's where you have to put some elbow grease in and make sure that you're keeping your property maintained properly so it's working correctly. So it's not pass fail. It's an educational report on you know ultimately the condition of your house. So we look at these things. We will also look at the seller's disclosure, which is provided to us when we go under contract with the seller. And anything that is not disclosed that we were not aware of before we went into the home inspection is something that we can ask the seller for to either repair, give you a credit to do it after settlement, or do a price reduction, whatever we feel is in your best interest as the buyer that we want to present to the seller. In general, I like to ask for a credit depending on the repair so that you can address it yourself with your contractor, knowing it was done correctly. Try not to put that responsibility on the seller because they're going to use their people. And there's a possibility that they won't do it the way you were expecting it to be done. So, to try and avoid bad situations as we go through the deal, I always like to ask for a credit when possible or a price reduction. So, those are my two, suggestions that I like to make. But there are several scenarios that we can pursue as we're going through the inspection contingency period. So we submit our asks. If the seller does not agree or they don't respond to a way that you are happy with as the consumer, we have a time period within that inspection contingency to terminate the agreement of sale and get your deposit money back. So if we are not happy with the inspection or the resolution to the repairs that need to be made, you can terminate the agreement, get your deposit money back, and then we go find the next house for you. So there are two times in the agreement of sale that you can terminate the agreement: the mortgage contingency, if you are not able to obtain financing for whatever reason, and the inspection contingency. But we do have time frames that we need to follow in this. With the inspection contingency, it's a 10-day period of time to do the inspection usually, and then we have a 5-day window to negotiate those terms with the seller. Now, Hopefully, and usually, we're able to come to terms because people are reasonable and they want to sell their house and you want to buy the house. So, in general, this is not a time period that usually ends a deal, but you never know. You might find something that is just catastrophic in a house that we were unaware of, that you should walk away from it because the house is just not worth buying at that point, depending on how much the repairs would cost. So, these are all things that we will talk about after the inspection to make sure you're comfortable moving forward with the transaction. Once we're through this period, it kind of gets easy from there. And a lot of it goes on to you as the consumer. So you will need to be filling out your mortgage application. The lender's going to ask you for a ton of documents, your W-2s, your tax returns, your bank statements, your 401k information, where the money's coming from, where the money's been, and do your credit check, do your credit check again, verify with your employer that you're working there, and a list of other things they're going to be looking for. So just be prepared that the lender is going to need a lot of information from you. All that information goes into underwriting. The underwriter verifies all that stuff, and they come back to you with more questions. And it's probably the hardest part of the process is just getting all of your financial history together and submitting it to the lender. Now, when you got pre-approved before we started looking at houses, they did a lot of that, but it's more on the surface level just to verify this stuff to make sure they can pre-approve you. And then it all goes through the underwriting scrutiny to make sure that everything's good. Another thing the lender is going to do during this process is order the appraisal for you. So the house has to appraise at the purchase price for us to move forward with the mortgage contingency that we put together. If the house were to under appraise, so let's say we're under contract at 300,000 and it appraises for 275, we have a $25,000 gap in the purchase price that needs to be made up somehow. So either as a buyer, you can bring more money to the table. You can bring the entire $25,000 if you have that available. If you don't have that available, the seller will need to lower it $25,000. If they can't do that, then we're going to have to negotiate that. Maybe you can come up and the seller come down. If neither party is capable of bridging that gap, unfortunately, the deal would terminate because the lender cannot lend to that purchase price. They can only lend to the appraisal value. Now, my job, and it's a realtor's job, to before we submit that offer, look at the comparable properties and to the best of our abilities, determine that we are paying fair market value for the property. And then the appraisal is the second verification of that. So there's usually not any issues, but you never know. Things can happen. Sometimes there's not a lot of inventory to determine value, or you can get a bad appraisal, which happens from time to time. So this is probably the stickiest part of the deal is waiting for the appraisal to come in and make sure that it appraises at value. Now, this also can happen in the good side of things. The appraisal can come in overvalue, and if it comes in overvalue, that doesn't affect the deal at all, but means you have instant equity in the property. So let's say it appraised at 350 and you bought it for 300. It means you immediately have $50,000 equity in the house, and it means we got a good deal for the house. So that happens, not all the time, but it's an exciting thing when that does happen. So that is the appraisal. So ultimately, we wanted to appraise at value or above value, or we run into some sticky situations that ultimately we'll have to negotiate with the seller. Now, once again, if you're not able to come to terms with the seller with an under appraisal, we would terminate the deal per the mortgage contingency and you would get your deposit money back. So that's the last step in our contingencies, that your deposit money is protected, other than one more thing, which is title, which we'll talk about in a second. So once we're through all of those things, what we're looking for from the lender is the three best words in real estate, which is clear to close, which means you have gotten them all of their documents, the funding has been approved by the lender, and we were able to settle on the property. So now that we've talked about the inspections and the mortgage contingencies, let's talk about how we get to the settlement table in part 4. Check out the next video.